Welcome everyone to the Things Around 8. In this video we will talk about the increasing number of African soldiers in the Russian army invading Ukraine and Putin's plan to further increase the size of his forces. As I mentioned in many videos here on the channel, wars are expensive, really very expensive. Both in material terms and especially in human lives. And despite the great mechanization and automation of armies, wars, especially those of high intensity such as the Russian invasion of Ukraine, continue to require a huge number of soldiers on the ground. And today, as in the past, the side that has more troops available on the battlefield will have a great advantage that, if used well, could lead to victory in the war. In the case of Ukraine, as it is the attacked and invaded side, it is much simpler to justify large recruitment actions. After all, they are defending themselves from aggression in a Russian war of expansion and conquest. But in the case of Russia, which is the aggressor side, it is more difficult to convince young people and adults to go to war, the sole purpose of which is to guarantee Putin more territories to further expand Russia's already vast and gigantic territory. The Kremlin's propaganda machine works hard to disguise the real reasons for the war, making it more attractive. But deep down, it remains much more difficult for Russia, which is the aggressor, justify large recruitments than for Ukraine, which in the end is simply defending itself. To meet its gigantic demand for soldiers, Russia is using several strategies, such as, for example, offering very generous contracts to attract men with proven military experience, which was the strategy used by Putin to form his first invasion army, which started the war in February 2022. Another strategy involved the partial mobilization of reservists in September 2022, which guaranteed Putin an extra contribution of around 300,000 new soldiers. Throughout 2023, Russia reinforced its soldier hiring strategy, with Sergei Shoigu, Russian defense minister, announcing in December of that year that close to 450,000 new soldiers had been recruited through the signing of contracts with the armed forces. Another strategy widely followed by Russia also includes the use of private companies, the so-called mercenaries, as was the case with the Wagner Group, mainly responsible for the destruction and conquest of the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, with the Russians also using the recruitment of prisoners, offering to pardon his sentences in exchange for a 12-month deployment in the invasion of Ukraine. But in addition to all these ways of recruiting soldiers, Russia is also resorting to recruiting foreigners, with Putin offering, in addition to money, Russian citizenship extendable to other family members. And among the various foreign groups targeted by this initiative, Africans seem to be one of the most interested. Since the 1960s, during the times of the Soviet Union, Russia has maintained exchange programs with the African continent, created with the purpose of strengthening Russia's ties with future generations of African leaders. Programs that still exist, with data from the Russian government indicating that close to 35,000 Africans are studying in Russia with full scholarships. And since 2019, after a series of coups d'état in several countries in the African Sahel, many governments that were previously pro-Western have been overthrown, paving the way for the rise of pro-Russian governments, as is the case in Mali and Burkina Faso. Government changes that are bringing Africa and Russia even closer together at all levels, including the military. According to many analysts, this entire Russian-African rapprochement, which, as I demonstrated here, is not new, with roots dating back to the 1960s, has led many Africans to respond to Russia's calls for new soldiers. For a person from an authentically miserable region marked by wars, revolutions and coups, the possibility of receiving a monthly salary equivalent to the average annual income in their country of origin, and also Russian citizenship, and the possibility of starting a new life in Russia. These are offers that can be very attractive. As there is a very closed regime in Russia, we cannot say exactly how many Africans are currently fighting in the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but several sources report that between 1,000 and 1,500 Africans are fighting in Ukraine, with at least another 2,000 in training, with at least 10,000 Africans, mostly from countries with dictators or pro-Russian regimes, expected to be preparing to reinforce Putin's invasion forces over the next 12 months. Thank you very much for watching the video, and now I invite you to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so we'll see you more often, and so you'll be up to date with everything that's happening.